Step 2, continued. The successor program, this is a good example of why we got to do better at branding, because that's not any good. It should be the We Love Children program, but we got to have something better. We need to ensure that children have access to the services. That touches on the dental thing I just gave an example of. And I put a little reference there. Act 1017 assures us of that. Now, the Act tells us what to do. We've got to implement that Act and make sure we do it in a good way. Ensure that all developmental services and therapies are coordinated. And you see, I keep underlining that kind of stuff for families who choose center-based services. Now, that doesn't mean they don't need to be coordinated for people that don't, but our task right now is to talk about clinic-based, center-based services. And I list some here that need to be coordinated. HAB, we've already talked about what that is. Therapy, consultation. There's a lot more of that in a CHMS right now than a DDTCS. Hopefully when we put the two together, we'll have consultation for everybody. Others is needed. There's children that are going to need some services specific to them. And even if you've got a big center, you might not run across one or two of those a year. And of course, they got to operate in the most efficient and effective way possible, because we have got to be able to demonstrate to CMS, who pitch in 70% of the cost. We've got to demonstrate to folks over in the General Assembly that we are not throwing money up in the air. We are not buying Learjets for the directors of some of these programs, that we are taking care of children and we're taking care of their families. When we all get together, if the group decides these are the worst, some of the worst principles ever, we can probably throw them out. I don't think that'll happen. I wrote down on my notes, I said these are suggestions, but strong suggestions. Because I felt like, and I've been doing this long enough, and I worked at several providers, that this would be what the group would tell me was important. It might not be the most important thing, but it's at least something that we probably can all agree on. The difference between a child being able to toilet themselves and not is not a big deal when they're 5. It is a huge deal when they're 25. For bean counters who are only interested in money, it's probably about a $30,000 a year difference, if not more. Sometimes the difference in learning to toilet oneself revolves around the ability to get the snap open on a pair of pants and a zipper down and back up. It's a huge issue. Some of y'all operate programs for adults, and I've done that, is, hey, we ought to all go to the movies. Let's take the guys to the movies. That's great. We should do that. That's fun. Everybody likes movies. Who's working tonight? Shelly and Anna. Man, they're great. Shelly and Anna are the 2 best employees we have. I'm glad they're working. Who's going? Well, it's 4 guys and 4 girls. That's all right. That's 2 staff to 8 folks. We can do that. That's a good ratio. But Jimmy's one of the boys. Jimmy can't toilet himself. And Anna and Shelley can't take Jimmy, who's a grown man, into the ladies' room at this theater. And the theater doesn't have family-style restrooms. And they can't go in the men's restroom. So now Jimmy can't go. Well, that's all right. I'll stay home with Jimmy. Well, but Shelley can't take 7 folks to the movies. Well, we ain't going to the movies. I know some of you have had that play out time and time again. I know I have when running places. And so not only has Jimmy not figuring out how to get his zipper up and down, because that's what kept him from learning the toilet train, affected his independence, because now he can't go anywhere that doesn't have private bathrooms unless he has a male staff. if he's going across town and they're making pretty good progress at the therapy center, and you're making pretty good progress at the center, but you're doing two different things. I mean, it could be one of you's teaching him left hand and one of them right. And we set that guy back, and when he's 25, nobody gets to go to the movies. Shame on us for not doing it. Right? Not shame on your therapist, not shame on you. Shame on bureaucrats for not setting the program up right. Now, after giving that little sermonette, I probably don't need to read these. I keep underlining must, and everything must support each other, and it must be coordinated. Now, the top one is OK method. At least somebody's getting therapy. At least they're getting clinic-based care. But they're doing it in two different places. And while the best of intentions when you're trying to communicate at two different businesses, you're going to miss some stuff. Some stuff's going to hit those dashes and dots and not get through. Some things that started out as one instruction or one best practice might not get to the other place like that. You got a limited amount of time with these children. Now, the bottom, which I've called the better method, I couldn't think of anything more than that. And I tried to make these two circles different colors so you know we're not cutting that therapist out. All we're saying is it needs to overlap at least some. If you're over here at Central Arkansas Therapy and you're 18 blocks away from AEDD, you have got to have some coordination. And I don't mean faxing notes back and forth. I mean an integrated care plan. It's not the most efficient and effective way if we got people not working together and people are children are hitting kindergarten, not being able to speak in a way that most people can understand them, or chew and swallow their food without choking, so that some overambitious somebody puts them on a liquid diet. We can't let even one or two children not get to kindergarten where they need to be because we were too busy protecting our turf and not having coordinated plans. Not only is it more expensive, it's horribly unethical to let a child who could have caught up and who could have entered kindergarten on an upward path, just a little bit behind, and by the time he's in third grade, he was caught up. And while he wasn't going to be valedictorian, he was having a good time, and everybody accepted him, and he was in regular class. But because we didn't have coordinated therapy and coordinated care, he wasn't on an upward plane when he hit kindergarten, and it ended up being the crest of a hill, and he got further and further behind. If a child's needs are such that he's in the big circle, he or she, which means they're eligible for one of our clinic-based cares and hopefully in the future, the one great clinic-based care setting, then there's no question as to that outside therapy will be coordinated. Doesn't have to be provided by the clinic therapist, but it'll be coordinated. It's got to be. Or we're going to let children not reach their potential because everybody's too busy. Well, we don't have time to call over there. The people that's at CHMS are all, they think they know everything. They really want their therapist to do this. We work with them. They'll talk mom into eventually going over there. We're not having it. I don't want to have those discussions. Those discussions don't have anything to do with that child that I keep putting the picture up. That child and that mom and daddy, they don't give a crap about that. It's got to be like this. We're going to go back to that slide because I like it, because I'm obviously very passionate about this. And people can coordinate care. Who's got an ICF in here? Stephanie and Linda do. Georgiana does. Tony does. I do. Jim and Shelley do. I see our medical director sitting back there. He's one that's responsible for a lot of stuff. We do that all the time. You think we got a neurologist up over to Arkadelphia Human Development Center? No. We don't have a neurologist in Arkadelphia. But we coordinate that care, because if we don't, that it's not going to result in a good care plan. It's not going to result in a good outcome. And our regulator, long-term care, who all of y'all that are familiar with them know and love like we do, is going to come in and smack the crap out of you for not coordinating that care. They don't care. In an intermediate care facility, you don't get to say, well, it's just not a neurologist anywhere close to here. They don't care. And they're right. You said you'd take care of these people. You said you'd have a comprehensive care plan. Now have one. If your doctor has to call the neurologist up at UAMS, you do that. It's one of the reasons why we've got our medical director works at UAMS too, to help facilitate that coordination. There's not going to be an excuse. There just can't be. I'm not looking somebody's mama in the face and saying, well, you know, we had to give in. There's people that didn't want to give up the way they were practicing. It's not doing it. It's a special group of children in that big circle. So special that the state and federal government have said we're going to spend $250 million on them here in Arkansas. That's how special they are. And if we can't figure out a way to make sure that therapy is coordinated, all the care they get in that setting is coordinated, then we ought to quit and go do something else. But I know we can. I'm preaching to the choir. I know we can do it. People do it all the time.
I'm sorry. I'm a general pediatrician up at Children's. And you may have covered this in the work group one, but is there any comment about where the general pediatrician provider fits into this care coordination, and already some discussion about their responsibility of the episode of care?
That is an excellent question. One of the I'm not even going to try to run this slide back. One of the slides talked about the fact that we have one clinic-based program right now that has a lot of clinical people in it, the CHMS program. We got one that's DDTCS that doesn't have as many. When we put the two together, we've got to figure out what all goes on in that circle. And I would imagine, and I didn't try to tackle it this time, that we will have a whole lot of little circles attached to that. I couldn't do it today because it just got too complicated, but we will end up with, because we'll have children that need, that their PCP will have to be a lot more involved than others. We'll have some that a nutritionist will have to be a lot more involved. People that are really, for the most part, outside the big circle will have to have an overlapping circle. I promise you, we've got to do it. It won't matter. These are the things, these are the big spenders. As the McKinsey people would say, this is where the big spend is for clinic-based care. That's why I wanted to start with that, just to make sure, as a principle, that's got to happen. We can't have anybody off by themselves, including a doctor, who you think, well, a doctor's never going to talk to us. Well, you know, if we had nursing in the programs where you could get reimbursed for it, I found out that doctors' offices will talk to nurses. They're much, and the lines of communication are much better than they are when the special ed teacher calls or even the therapist calls. But a nurse will talk to another nurse and we'll have better coordination. Now, the other thing, I started to make a slide about this very subject, is that we are all supposed to have electronic medical records soon. And the reason I didn't make the slide is because in Arkansas, soon could be not very imminent. But we're all working towards it. And as a DD community, we're actually looking at the state and the network of providers going in together and making sure we all have the same one. If that happens, it's my understanding, Anna or Dawn or somebody in here could tell me, to contradict me if you want to, that IT system would be able to talk to electronically the OHIT system, which is going to be the warehouse or clearinghouse for all medical records, and that will be so that whichever one we pick and the one they're operating at Lone Lone Oak Exceptional School. Lone Oak Exceptional School is not going to have to go out and find somebody who can tie their electronic record system to the doctors in Lone Oak and the specialists in Little Rock and the specialists in Cabot and the doctors in Cabot. No. Lone Oak will have a IT system, ideally, that will be able to talk to OHIT, and I can't remember what OHIT is. It's SHARE. What does OHIT stand for? Office of Health Information Technology. That's the statewide initiative. Lone Oak's records can go to SHARE at OHIT. OHIT will be able to talk to all these different doctors' records, not physically, and it'll all come back. So if there needs to be some medical stuff coordinated, it can be coordinated like that. Now, I'll be the first to say that's a dream, but people are talking about it like it's going to happen. It's probably not going to happen in the next 6 months, but I do believe it'll happen because I think the marketplace has finally caught up with us, and I really believe that we'll be able to pass information like that. Anything we can keep high-paid clinicians, anytime we can keep them off the phone if necessary, or keep them from typing information into something that could be entered automatically, we'll become more efficient and more effective.